hatchback flies through the trees at 100 kilometers per hour, flying sideways through the air with unignited fuel backfiring from the exhaust. Red-hot brakes squeal as the mid-engine machine is flicked through corner after corner, flicking dirt and gravel in all directions, the turbocharged engine rocketing the tuned-up grocery getter out of each and every corner. The anti-lag system explodes like gunshots as the Renault 5 Turbo rounds a corner and blasts down a straight. 120, 130, 150 kilometers per hour as the tiny French supercar flies by spectators precariously close to the track. Weaving in between trees, through the dirt and rocks with the throttle pinned to the floor, this is the art of rally. Art of Rally is a Simcade rally game by Fun Selector, who you might know for their earlier Drift Simcade game, Absolute Drift. Its driving is relatively realistic and weighty, but forgiving enough to drive on even a controller or keyboard. The gravity's light, making every jump and bump dynamic and exaggerated, playing to the aesthetic of the game. The minimalist art style and soundscape is great, and the whole game is pretty easy to run on pretty much any computer. I started playing this game on an i5 a couple generations old and with Intel integrated graphics, and it ran pretty well on the lower settings and maintained a pretty good look. With high settings though, Art of Rally really shows why it has art in the name, with great shadows, intense colors, and well-designed textures. The game takes place through the history of Rally, allowing you to drive classics from the 60s and 70s to overtuned Group B cars from the 80s and later prototype Group S cars that make even Group B look tame, and then eventually modern WRC Group A machines. The progression system is fun and rewarding, but also difficult and relatively slow-paced. It's a good mix of everything I like from a single-player game. The lack of story is, I think, a good omission, since racing games tend not to benefit from having one, and it often just serves to slow down the pacing of a lot of great racing games. The races of the main campaign take place in 6 segments of 5 years, which each of them being in the top rally group of that time, from Group 2 starting in-game in 1967, to the final year of Group A in this game, 1996. From slightly modified road cars to purpose-built race machines, this game has it all. Progressing through the ages and feeling the difference in technology and speed between every group, every single car feels very unique, and I can't say there's anyone that feels the best out of its era, aside from me personally liking it. There are multiple different difficulty and damage modes that affect how hard the AI opponents are and how much damage your car can sustain without breaking. The AI opponents don't race you wheel to wheel and are pretty much just times set for you to race against, and even in the hardest difficulty, the times aren't too terribly hard to reach a podium position against, even on keyboard, as I played through the entire game on keyboard. The damage is also relatively toned down from more realistic rally sims like Richard Burns Rally and Dirt Rally, especially games like BeamNG, making it less stressful and easier to get in that flow state that this game feels best at. In fact, from the minimalistic visuals to the lo-fi soundtrack, the whole game seems designed around the idea of flow and putting you in that state. There are a few other modes, such as an online mode where you set hot laps against other real players, a free roam mode that acts as a place to get all sorts of collectibles, and a custom rally option, and a solo hot lap mode. The physics of driving feel weighty and realistic, but forgivable enough to play on a controller or keyboard. The cars behave more or less as you would expect, with oversteer, understeer, and weight transfer all being simulated. Each of the different track surfaces heavily change the way the car feels. A car on snow or wet gravel grips less than on asphalt or dry dirt, for example. There's also a lot of verticality in some of the levels, with jumps, valleys, and hills to conquer, which adds a lot of dynamicness to the game. The way the car feels as the weight shifts over a crest or sinks into a bank corner really feels great, and makes handling feel a lot more realistic than if the gravity wasn't as accounted for. Speaking of gravity though, when you jump, the otherwise pretty standard physics become way more floaty and you stay in the air for an unrealistic amount of time. The free roam area is a fun place to explore and find collectibles. You can also use it to practice and get used to cars, as any car is pickable even if you haven't unlocked it yet. Something I found irritating though with the game is, as a whole, the bounds are very tight that you have to stay in on tracks. If you venture even slightly too far off the intended path or cut a corner a little bit too far, the game resets your car to the track and adds 5 seconds onto the timer, which is a quantity of time that can mean the difference between first place and missing a podium position. This was irritating throughout the main campaign and is especially annoying when it happens right at the end of the level. I'm not sure what could be done to remedy this, seeing as a lot of the boundaries are there for a reason. You could fly off the edge of a cliff, or run into some trees, or even in real life, pop a tire or something, but I feel like they did just feel a bit too tight, especially on the chicanes. The damage model is very forgiving though, with large impacts not affecting your car too much. I never once had my car out of commission through the campaign, and deliberately had to try to break it to get an achievement, though as you'll see on the video it did catch fire a couple times. The damage system is detailed though, with radiator, suspension, engine, turbo, and or supercharger, and even the gearbox taking damage throughout various points in the race. You can fix this at dedicated repair points every 2 or so races. You have a set amount of time to do repairs and can use that time to repair the car as you wish. If you don't repair or aren't at a repair point, then car damage carries over to the next stage. The damage model is pretty forgiving though. Even when a car is on fire, for example, the performance change isn't terribly significant. The main game mode is, as previously stated, a campaign which takes place over 5 groups containing 6 seasons each. You race against AI players and try to win courses, then rallies, then ultimately entire seasons. It isn't the type of game I would personally binge, but I'm not a huge play the same single player game for hours on end type of guy anyway. Going through a season or 2 in a setting keeps progression quick while also making it fun and fresh every time you play. Since each of the cars is so different, experimenting with them throughout the entire group keeps it interesting despite the relative lack of variation in courses. The free roam mode has 4 different tracks with collectibles in them: cassettes, letters that spell out rally, and photo op spots. Once you collect all the rally letters, you unlock the next free roam course and it continues. Each of the courses are relatively large and fun to drive on, and it's a good diversion, albeit a bit underdeveloped in my opinion. The time trial mode is where a lot of fun will come from for those who like to score chase or those who have already beaten the main campaign. This game is relatively active and competitive, so there are always times to try and chase. Custom Rally is similar, but with an entire rally rather than a single stage. There is also an online challenges mode that gives you one try to beat other players in either a weekly or daily challenge with a preset car and course. The modes in this game are simple and limited, but diverse enough to keep the game fun even with its relatively conservative quantity of content. The tracks are good and varied, with a variety of different locations, geography, and road types to drive on. The location, track surface, and weather is randomized when playing in the campaign, but on time trial and custom rally you can set your own. Each of the different locations, Finland, Sardinia, Japan, Norway, Germany, Kenya, and Indonesia, each have their own unique tracks with reverse versions. Each of the tracks has a different type of surface: gravel, snow, dirt, or asphalt in different combinations. Each of these track surfaces handles very uniquely with different levels of grip as well as track width. Rain, fog, and different types of day affect the visuals, and in the case of rain, the way the car handles significantly. Depending on what car you pick, it might be good in the rain but slow in straight lines, or be able to take a lot of damage but not handle very well. It's a unique balance that fits the game really well. Throughout each of the 6 classes, there are a variety of different rally cars to use. rear-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, and all-wheel drive, slow and fast, turbocharged, supercharged, naturally aspirated, inline, V, boxer, rotary, purpose-built rally cars, and lightly modified grocery getters. All are based on real cars, but use fake in-game names to avoid licensing issues. There are also a few other categories that aren't used in the main campaign, but you can use in time trials and the like. Vans, tri-wheelers, trucks, and logging vehicles. All of these are slower than the rally cars, but certainly fun novelties to try out. The great variety in the cars and how unique they feel is something that keeps me coming back time and time again to this game. The Ford Cosworth RS200, known in-game as the Cosy SR2, is a personal favorite both in real life and in-game. And if you want to give it a shot, it's on the Group B class. The low poly models and minimalist textures mesh perfectly with the lo-fi music. All of the menus are modern, clean, and easy to navigate. The particle effects are detailed and look nice, but above all this, the best part about the presentation, in my opinion, is the lighting and shadows. While not being the most realistic at times, the stylized shading and God rays look fantastic, and it's a wonder it can look so good while running well even on low-end machines. Art of Rally has some of the best style of any indie game that I know of. Its visuals remind me of Firewatch in their presentation rather than something more realistic like Dirt Rally, Forza Motorsport, or Assetto Corsa. It feels like it's trying to harken back to the PSX days rather than actually being a mimicry of it. It's a really great style, and I wish more games used similar styling. In conclusion, Art of Rally is one of the best arcade racing games I've played. It's a rally game though, and that's my personal favorite racing discipline, so I'm probably a bit biased. The physics feel great, and all the cars and tracks play uniquely and amazing. The visuals are good, relaxing, and minimalistic, the sound design is amazing, and the music meshes perfectly with the visuals. There are a few sticking points though, with obnoxious out-of-bounds areas and at times excessively floaty physics, but overall my complaints are very minimal. This game is great to play for about half an hour to an hour at a time, and I would recommend it to pretty much anyone because its difficulty is very adjustable. All of that being said though, I give Art of Rally a 7.2 out of 10. Thanks for everyone watching, and sorry for the long gap between this video and the last. Unfortunately, there will probably be a long delay since my next video is going to be a pretty big project. I'll be doing a review on the remakes of the original Resident Evil trilogy along with Resident Evil 0, all in one video, or maybe in a short series of 3 or 4 videos, in preparation for the Resident Evil 4 remake. I'll try to do the original games at a later date, but the remakes are what is accessible to me at the moment, as well as the 4th game is getting remade, so I'd like to keep it consistent. Anyway, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for that next video.